I do not know how much longer I have left to record at this location, as the moving process is going along rather smoothly. So I figured I would record a video on one of my days off for a random bonus video while I am still living at this location. This is a subject that I have wanted to cover in a video for a while, so I wrote down a bunch of notes in my little notebook here. I do not particularly know when I am going to find the time to edit this video, and I do not know when I am going to release this video, but I have a decent number of bonus videos kind of queued up for the next month and a half, 2 months, I don't remember exactly. But in a video that I recorded months ago, and in a video that will have been released sometime in either late January or early February of the calendar year 2025, I mentioned the Godzilla mobile game, Godzilla Defense Force. And if you have never seen gameplay of this game, you're not really missing a whole lot, but the YouTube channel known as Super Godzilla Gaming does have a long play playlist up on YouTube that I did sort of kind of skim literally just before I hit record. There only seems to be so much documentation of this game online. Toho Kingdom has a decent chunk of information cataloged pertaining to Godzilla Defense Force. Wikizilla, on the other hand, does not seem to have a whole lot, but I guess in short summarization, if you don't know what the game is, it's one of those games where you like click a bunch or tap a bunch, and in this case, you click a bunch or tap a bunch in order to cause Earth military forces to attack swarms of incoming monsters. Not kaiju, but just like random mook monsters. And ostensibly, it is because the Exilian alien race from the Godzilla series is trying to invade the Earth and conquer it. And really, it's just an excuse for an extensive catalog of the Toho Company Limited Godzilla Kaiju roster to be mind controlled by the Exilians to attack various Earth cities. And obviously the game's motivation overall is to get you to spend money on microtransactions so that you can more effectively defend the cities of Earth. When I recorded that old video, I was kind of messing around with Godzilla Defense Force here and there just out of boredom, but obviously I'm going to be doing an entire video on it, so I had to review it a little bit. Again, I do not know where in my release schedule this will fall, but there is a mini series of videos that will be releasing at some point in this channel's catalog of content where I discuss minor and tertiary Godzilla characters that most Godzilla fans probably don't even remember at all nor hold in particular high regard. But me and my brother have always held the philosophy that there are very few outright bad concepts. Most of the time, a bad concept can be salvaged through proper and good execution. And so, even with a mobile Godzilla game that is designed primarily to siphon your money and your resources and your time, I think some of this stuff warrants discussion on its own, because I feel like there's some merit to some of it, and hopefully this video will show that. So the first thing that we have to talk about is obviously the character that I have paid a decent amount of lip service to in the past, which is the character known as Operator Yui. In short, Operator Yui is basically the tutorial character. In a movie setting, she'd be the exposition dump. She basically explains all of the game mechanics to you and just says, "Oh, Tokyo is under attack. Commander," that's you, "you have to go defend the city," you know, and stuff like that. She explains how to build up the military bases and downing UFOs so that you can get all sorts of rewards, and how you can utilize the kaiju cards to defend against kaiju that are assaulting the city. I was unable to truly devote my time to going through the Super Godzilla Gaming long play of Godzilla Defense Force to more specifically parse out information on this succeeding point, but Operator Yui seems very knowledgeable of the various monsters and kaiju present in the game that you encounter, as well as the various versions of Godzilla, which, I mean, makes sense sense because she is ostensibly a G-Force operator type of personnel. But that makes sense, right? Like I said, she is the tutorial character. She basically just tells the player everything they need to know about any given monster, because obviously not every single person that checked out Godzilla Defense Force was necessarily going to be acquainted with the massive back library of pre-existing Toho kaiju. So if you are a fan of Toho Godzilla kaiju, every time a new monster pops up, she gives a brief summary of the kaiju, and if you've watched the movies like I have, most of them don't really reveal anything new or interesting, but I understand the functional purpose. But as a consequence, Operator Yui naturally has to know as a character a lot about all of the different kaiju. And like I said, I could not parse out all the individual details, but she very much seemed to be, through her coverage of the various versions of Mothra and Mothra Leo, to be a super fan of Mothra and Mothra Leo. Although I do not know to what extent she really cares for Mothra Leo, I just know that she mentions Mothra a lot, obviously, in the summarizations for Mothra Leo, and it really struck me like she cares a lot about Mothra. Now, obviously, if you are looking at the screen in any way and not looking at my ugly mug, you can see that Operator Yui is capable of donning a Mothra alternate costume. I just tried to look it up. Wikizilla does not say exactly how you unlock it. Let me see if Toho Kingdom has any inside information on that. Best I can do right now off the cuff is say that there was a game mode that was added at some point during Godzilla Defense Force's life cycle called Kaiju Dungeon. And I imagine, based on what I read, it was basically a gauntlet of various kaiju encounters, and Mothra Operator Yui here was one of the unlockables that you could get for a certain degree of accomplishment within the Kaiju Dungeon mode. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is Henry paying so much attention to and talking so much about Operator Yui? The answer should be pretty obvious, but the fact is, Operator Yui is a cute anime girl. Now, I know there are some people who do not like that. In preparation for making this video, I looked up Operator Yui, and there was some post on one of the various fandom wikis for Godzilla, a discussion thread where someone was basically just saying, oh, she's just gooner bait. I will not elaborate on what that means if you do not know what that means. To some extent, I can understand why that criticism would be levied at her, because Operator Yui is not difficult on the eyes, and she seems to have a sizable chest, which isn't really that surprising when taken in the context of anime-esque styled mobile games. I'm pretty sure that is like the majority of the market for anime girls in mobile games, but she is rather catching to the eye. I really like the hat that she wears. She is aesthetically appealing, and she does look rather adorable in the Mothra costume. It is worth noting that there was supposed to be an alternate costume for her that was inspired by / was evocative of Godzilla's main rival, King Ghidorah. And in particular, I believe Toho Kingdom says that said costume was meant to be the unlockable for a Kaiju Dungeon gauntlet inspired by / based on GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. The alternate costumes apparently had some sort of stat benefit when equipped to Operator Yui, but if you ask me, the gameplay loop of Godzilla Defense Force is rather shallow anyway, so what difference would it really have made? I'm more so disappointed by the fact that we do not know what Operator Yui would have looked like in the King Ghidorah outfit. The description on Toho Kingdom that was apparently written for the suit that we never got to see evoked King Ghidorah destroying the civilization of Venus, as was part of the lore of the Showa iteration of the King Ghidorah character. So in truth, I do not know what King Ghidorah Operator Yui would have really looked like, because Toho seems really fond of the 1991 Heisei iteration of King Ghidorah, but the cut description for the costume evoked the Showa iterations of King Ghidorah, 1964, 1965, 1968, and I guess if you want to include Godzilla vs. Gigan, 1972. But as I said, the costume was meant to be an and unlockable for a kaiju dungeon based on Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah giant monsters all out attack. So what it would have looked like, I really can't say. Just based off of pattern recognition, my guess would be that Toho probably would have wanted the developers of Godzilla Defense Force to focus more on the Heisei iteration of King Ghidorah, but it really could have been any of the versions of King Ghidorah, which I guess as a costume for Operator Yui, it effectively would have been, because the Mothra costume for Operator Yui does not punch me in the face with memories of any one particular version of Mothra. So aside from her appearance and her mechanical purpose, I will say that Operator Yui, based on what little characterization she seemed to have gotten in Godzilla Defense Force, seemed to be rather bubbly and cheerful in terms of personality. I don't know if I would necessarily describe it this way, but she always seems to be smiling at the player, and given that she is basically an anime girl in a mobile game, that's probably meant to be what is being conveyed to the player by Operator Yui's mannerisms, because mobile games tend to try to entice the player into buying more of any number of in-game currencies or what have you, and obviously with the Mothra alternate costume, Operator Yui was not necessarily innocent of the typical tactics of mobile game developers. Otherwise though, she does seem rather innocent. I am genuinely surprised that there is not more fan art or fan love for Operator Yui. She very much stands in contrast to the Godzilla for PS3/PS4 Godzilla vs. G-Force Operator. Now, Operator Yui does not have a voice actress, so to an extent, she is not as well developed as the PS4 Operator, I will just call her. But I would be really interested in knowing which of these two G-Force Operators Godzilla fans are bigger fans of. I personally, in my own headcanon, can just imagine a world where both of these women work alongside each other, and Operator Yui is, you know, the stereotypical anime, really cheery, really upbeat, go-getter anime girl, you know, as evidenced by the fact that she smiles a lot and she dresses up in silly costumes based on the kaiju and the fact that she has rather big tits. Whereas I kind of have always pictured the PS4 Operator woman as more demure, more serious. Like, she doesn't really understand why Operator Yui acts the way she does. She takes her work very seriously. Godzilla is approaching the generator. The generator is losing power. And I guess that is kind of as a consequence of the fact that the PS4 Operator, she is constantly showing up and speaking in-game dialogue in her game. Whereas Operator Yui pops up when the kaiju start attacking, and she shows up to explain game mechanics, which the PS4 Operator here doesn't even do, that I can remember. Call me crazy, I don't know. I just have always felt like Operator Yui and the PS4 Operator would make for a very interesting character dynamic. Now, I know this is ostensibly a video about Godzilla Defense Force, but I am going to spontaneously come up with a name for the PS4 Operator in this video. I will say it. I will probably summarily forget it, but this is completely original. Technically, the PS4 Operator is named nothing. She's just the G-Force Operator woman from Godzilla for PS3 and PS4. But I looked up a list of Japanese girl names, and it has the meanings listed here. I am going to propose that we name this particular operator from the PS3, PS4 game Operator Naomi. It was trendy in the 90s according to this article that I'm looking at online, and obviously the 90s were when the Heisei Godzilla series was running, so there's that. But more importantly, this article says, quote, "It means straight, direct, and beautiful." Now obviously we do not get to see much much of Operator Naomi here, but no one can say that she is not straight to the point and direct. She will let you know that the generator is under attack. So I just wanted to talk about Operator Yui up there, and that kind of led me to talk about Operator Naomi down here. I feel like G-Force, in particular its personnel, are never really given a whole lot of depth or characterization. And part of me just feels like the character dynamic of Operator Yui and Operator Naomi could be kind of cute and would add an element of uniqueness to any Godzilla property that decided to include them. Now, in all likelihood, Toho would not reuse character designs from disparate Godzilla games, especially considering how much Toho seems to not like Godzilla in video games media anymore these days. But I kind of just wanted to talk about it, and in the process of doing so, I realized that it would make much more sense to hold off on talking about these other tertiary characters from Godzilla Defense Force in another video. So that is probably what I am going to do now that I have sat down and started recording this video. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this video. As you can probably tell, I do not plan this stuff out very rigorously. So I do not know how I am going to record the remaining video topics listed in this notebook that I presently hold. Drop a like if you at all enjoyed this video. I personally enjoyed discussing many of the minor, scarcely documented Godzilla characters, particularly the human ones. Most people, understandably, focus a lot more on the monsters and care a lot more about them. And anyone who has watched this channel knows that I have covered a lot of that stuff already. Most of it was done in the form of Godzilla Save the Earth Melee Monster Manual coverage, but I think the human element of the Godzilla franchise deserves covering just as much, and I feel like the most fresh ground that has been trodden on very little is stuff like this, where I cover the small-time random characters that no one really knows about. So comment in the comment section below your feelings about characters that I covered in this video, what other minor / tertiary Godzilla characters you would like me to cover in the future, or you could subscribe, you know, and hold out hope that I will eventually cover a topic that you have mentioned. Or you can do both. I'm not going to stop you. What I will encourage you to do, however, is to check out my merchandise store, Mount Merch. I have lots of t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, and other knickknacks up for sale on Mount Merch. I made the profit margins for all of the merchandise on Mount Merch as slim as I possibly could, because if it's too expensive for me to buy, why would you buy it? But if you wish to financially support my channel in any way, I would check that out. Plus, I am moving houses at some point, so financially it will help lower / lessen the burden that I will be facing month to month. So consider doing any of those supportive things. Aside from that, I will leave you with the following message that I always do leave you with. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all take it easy after you finished watching the video, and I will catch you on the flip side.
This right here is my favorite thing ever in the history of forever. I think about this every day.